let's say sometimes you ended up getting not 4 or 3.9, and other times you ended up getting 4.1. Well, you would say, wait a minute, I can't trust the system, right? That's not a unambiguous prediction. I don't have evidence of exactly what 2 plus 2 gives me. Sometimes it's giving me 4.1, and other times it's giving me 3.9. So that's not evidence because evidence is unambiguous prediction. So in order for you to know the input and get the output, this is key. And knowing that the system you're putting it into, that if you're trying to predict the output, that it has the following features. So let's go look at that. Okay. So in the case of the input voting, there is no voter ID. The input, we don't know who actually voted. There's no authentication. You don't get a receipt when you vote. I mean, I never, by the way, in full disclosure, I never voted in my life. I never liked the system. I never liked these politicians. The first time I voted was for Donald Trump because I saw him as a great disruptor. I remember going in to vote in the Belmont election office, and I said, I have my ID. I brought my passport. They said, we don't need that. They just said, what's your name? That's it. I didn't even have to prove my name. Nothing. They just said, what's your name and what's your address? So I want to ask everyone on the phone, on the live today, given that there's no voter ID, no authentication, you don't even get a receipt, can anyone here who did vote or does vote, can any one of you prove to me that you actually went somewhere and voted? Can you definitively prove that to me? Unambiguously. Frankly, I can just tell you I voted. I don't have a receipt. They crossed my name off. It could have been anyone. They didn't take a picture of my voting. There is no authentication. It's completely ambiguous whether I voted. So the evidence coming in is ambiguous. And this is something we all need to understand from a science. This would be no different than if I'm doing a scientific experiment and I'm putting input into something and I don't record it anywhere. And I just say, oh yeah, I put that input in and I got this output out. Those papers would get retracted in science. But the bottom line is when you look at this reality, no one, you cannot prove to me that you in fact are voting anywhere. This is quite remarkable when you really step back and look at this. The voting system is created to have no evidence of you ever having voted. It's totally ambiguous. That's on the input side, okay? There is no evidence that you voted. You can't prove to me that you voted. Now, in other voting systems, when you go to India, they take your thumbprint. They ask for your ID. They know you voted. And in some cases, they give you a receipt. The United States voting system has no voter ID, no authentication, no receipt. None of you, whenever you vote, can even prove that you voted. There's no authentication, which means two-way proof. Number one. Now let's go to the output side, okay? So output. Let's take a case. If the input is 10 votes for A, 20 votes for B, the output then should give 10 votes for A, 20 votes for B, right? Goes in. Now, provided the system cannot change the output, if that is possible, then there is ambiguity. And where there is ambiguity, there's no evidence. So evidence is not evidence as it is ambiguous. So if that voting system can have ambiguous input coming in, but let's give it that they had 10 votes and 20 votes for A and B. But let's say when it comes out of that system that you're getting a different number. Let's say this system can actually alter the 10 maybe to 50 and take the 20 and bring it down to 10. Suppose the system had capabilities to do that. So this is what I'm proposing to you because this will set us up for tomorrow's discussion. What I'm proposing to you is 10 votes come in for A, 20 votes come in for B. But suppose that voting system within that software has the capabilities maybe to take the 10 votes for A and multiply it by 2 and take the 20 votes for B and have it. Suppose that system had that capability. What would you say? What would anyone say? What would anyone say? You would say it's not evidence of anything took place. You have no evidence that those numbers that you're seeing on the screen at 8 p.m., 9 p.m. at night are even real. And what I'm going to share with you today is because of the wonderful context that I've had with a woman called Bev Harris and Benny Smith and John Brakey, they've been putting this out there, but they said, Shiva, you have such a bigger reach. You have all the credentials to really bring this out. that I'm going to share with you, not today, but tomorrow. I want to just give you the preview that the work of these people, and I went into it independently, we have found the fact that that system, those voting systems, can in fact do that. Okay? They have a feature embedded into the system that can change the votes. It's embedded in there. And we're going to talk about that tomorrow. But at a high level, what I wanted to share with you is that the device can produce evidence which is ambiguous. Therefore, we have no evidence of what these numbers are because the system can alter them. That the database layer where the votes are stored, let's say for me and Doofus, that those vote counts, there are features that were embedded into the software system to alter those vote counts. Okay? To alter those vote counts by fractional amounts. That my vote can be weighted, can be multiplied by a factor. So, and this was a feature that was built into these systems. And no one knows why, except that it was built for certain types of voting scenarios, which I'll talk about, for homeowners association. But those features should never have been left into the US electoral systems. So this is called fractional voting, which Bev Harris and Benny Smith brought out. And I'm going to, bring it out more tomorrow. But the bottom line is that they have a voting system where the numbers in the database are not whole numbers. It's not Shiva got 1 vote or 10 votes. Shiva could get 10 votes times a factor, like 10 times 0.5. Okay? Or the other person can multiply the votes. The bottom line is that in sort of as a prelude to tomorrow, this system, the device or system, you can alter the vote. So look at the problem we have. The input is screwed up. You don't even know it's you. So that's ambiguous. And the output can also be manipulated. And this, by the way, is in all voting systems. It is in all electronic voting systems. The fact that that feature is in there means that there is no evidence of any type of loss or win. And this is why we are slaves. We don't really have a voting system. We have total fraud end to end. And the incredible campaign we ran can overnight be manipulated to be 60-40.